Welcome to the Tales of a Red Clay Rambler podcast, featuring interviews with culture makers from around the world. This is Ben Carter. I'm going to be your host. If you'd like more information on the show, please visit our website, talesofaredclayrambler.com. Welcome back to episode 360 of the podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Today on the show, I talk with Jessica Putnam Phillips about her ceramic work in the founding of ClayShare, which is an online ceramic platform similar to Netflix that's for ceramic education. The platform has over 200 classes and over 2,000 videos, so it's an accessible way to learn ceramics from the comfort of your own home. We do go in depth about her ceramic work, which is based off her time in the military. She was in Air Force Intelligence, and we talk about how art can alleviate some of the stress disorders that come out of a time like that. If you'd like to see examples of that work, you can go to her website. That's jessicaputnamphillips.com. You can check out ClayShare at clayshare.com. And actually, next week, they are hosting a free 5-day conference called ClayShareCon that is featuring online demos, deals, and giveaways. That's happening each day, February the 24th through the 28th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. That is totally free, so if you want to join that, you can go to claysharecon.com. Before we get to that interview, I wanted to thank some of the folks that donated to our fall fund drive last year. I'd like to thank Stephen Earp, Alan Willoughby, and Elijah Wagner for their support. If you'd like to get involved yourself, you can do that at talesofaredclayrambler.com/donate. Without further ado, we'll get to the interview. Let's start talking about your military experience and how that affects your sense of discipline in your life.
You know, anybody who's been in the military is usually highly disciplined from their experience. I didn't join the military to become disciplined. It was, my dad was Navy, so I grew up as a Navy brat, but my parents divorced when I was still pretty young. So I wasn't fully, involved in that lifestyle. But when my mom was a single mom and when I wanted to go to school, that I was looking for ways to afford college, and the GI Bill was like the way for me. So I signed up, did really well in the ASVAB. So I joined the Air Force as an intelligence analyst. So I went to military intelligence because I figured if I was going to go in the military, I wanted to have a job that I could somehow parlay that into a future career. So it could be like, working for the NSA or something. And I went with that, and it was really a whole different experience than, I was young and I didn't know what to expect. And the getting up at 3 a.m. sometimes every day and living with other people, you got like 60 other people living with you, and you have to do what you're told all the time on time. So you become very regimented and very good at keeping a schedule and disciplining yourself because you have to. And so for me, I feel like my military experience, when I did finally leave the service, it completely, I was a different person. I mean, nobody goes in the military and comes out the same way. You can't. It's just not possible. And I was, well, you're older, so you're more mature, so you handle responsibility better. Plus, while you're in, you're given a lot of responsibility for your age. Like there's a lot of young people that are in charge of things you wouldn't normally give them charge over. And so you either rise to the occasion and take on that responsibility and succeed, or you don't. And you don't stay in if you don't. So it's kind of how that works. So for me, I grew to love it. I loved everything about it. I loved the camaraderie. I loved serving with my fellow service people. I loved the friendships that I formed, the bonds. I loved the chow hall. like so it's been said that I joined the military because I didn't have to cook, because the food was there and you just showed up and got to eat, and the uniform, because you don't have to worry about what you're wearing, right? So it's like all taken care of. That's not why, but it was nice to not have to worry about that. And so for me as an artist, when I got out of the military, I was doing art before the military. I was an artistic person. I was taking, all the art courses I could in high school, and I did photography, and I thought I'd go into photography. I thought that's where I was going to end up. And actually, after I left the military, I did do freelance photography for a few years, doing commercial advertising work. But then I went back to school for geology and took a ceramics class, and that kind of wrote the book for me with that.
Are you allowed to talk about your intelligence work? Can I ask you questions about that?
You can. I can talk about some of it. Some of it's still classified, and so I just won't answer that. But it's funny because stuff will be on like CNN that's classified that you can see on the news, but I can't talk about it. But it's out there, and even though it's out there, I'm not allowed to talk about it because of my clearance.
So you were doing field work, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm, I was.
Yeah, the ability to read people and situations is something that's a skill. Like I would imagine in your training, like you learned things about people that all of us don't necessarily think about. How do you think the ability to read someone has helped you to be a teacher? Because essentially as a teacher, you're reading your students and trying to understand where they're at. So is there a crossover there?
I definitely think so. When you're teaching somebody, you can't use the same approach with everybody. I mean, I do believe in a gentle approach. I've had teachers that have all different teaching styles. And for me, I am not a in-your-face negative teacher. I'm very positive. I'm always trying to find the way to explain it so that it's easy to understand to my students. And, being able to see how receptive they are to that way, the way I'm teaching makes a big difference. And it's like reading a room. You read your students. And I guess if there are people who like different teachers and different teaching styles. And so for me, I've developed a style that is very hands-on, step-by-step, and very compassionate and encouraging, because I want my students to succeed and I want them to have fun while they're doing it. That's really important, because if they don't enjoy what they're doing, and they're not going to keep doing it, right? So that's been a big part of my teaching philosophy. And my military training has been huge, because military manuals break things down so simply. So because you're training somebody from day one who knows nothing on how to either use a piece of equipment or how to assemble something, and you have to be able to break it down so anybody can read that and understand it. And so, I would definitely say that has influenced my teaching and the way that I develop my teaching style.
You mentioned one time to me that your husband was also in intelligence, but was he Navy or Army?
He was in the Marine Corps.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It's close. We'll get there.
Yeah, I'll get there eventually.
Everybody, nobody keeps it straight. So I was in the Air Force and he was in the Marine Corps. And we met because we were at a joint base in Texas. We were at Goodfellow Air Force Base, and we were both training. He had already been in for 4 years. He was in the infantry in the Marine Corps. So he was training out of that because he wanted to do something other than just be a grunt, on the ground, basically a soldier. He wanted to add to it. Although every Marine is a soldier. So no matter what job you do, you're always on the ground. The Air Force is a little different. I was military intelligence, so I was very valuable to them. So they kept me back from the front lines. I was pretty safe. Although I was in country and I did deploy, I wasn't, right there where fighting was happening.
With two people in intelligence, this is just maybe a question that's inappropriate, but being married to someone who has the same skills you do you guys find that you get in like a mental battle because you're like trying to analyze each other to figure out why you're giving each other a hard time?
I think I overanalyze him, and he's always like, "I'm simple, don't do that," But yeah, we do, and we have great conversations too, because we analyze everything and like all the time. It's every conversation we ever have or have had, but I overanalyze more than him. he doesn't, I don't think he analyzes me. I think he's given up.
Because I think in the military is such a system of thinking, but I find this with academics also. Like my wife is an academic, and she is so logical, and I am not logical. Like I'm emotionally driven, and so sometimes I can tell I'm just confusing her. So I have to I have to communicate in like very direct sentences for what I want. So I wondered if you have two analytical people, like how that works out.
So he is more logical than I. I am very like driven by my heart and my emotions. And so he has to sometimes rein me in because I can get carried away. And also, he'll say something and he's like, don't read into it. What I'm saying is what I mean. That's it. There's nothing else to it. And I'll say something and apparently there's a lot more going on than just the words that I'm saying. I want him to understand more than those words. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and some people it might not work because of our personalities, but for us, it's been good.
So I wanted to bring your art practice into the discussion. You, after getting out of the service, you went to school. You have BFA and MFA. At what point did you start making art about women in the military?
I didn't start doing that until my graduate work, and I actually held back from it because to me, growing up in the military, my dad was in the military. I had uncles and my grandparents had been in the military. It was just normal. It didn't seem anything special. And the fact that I was a woman serving and my experiences, the things that happen while you're in service, it's just how it is. So you accept the situation and you're taught to just, go on with it and it's not a big deal. So I never really thought that my view was unique. I didn't really think I had a story to share because I thought, well, that's normal, right? But obviously it wasn't. So when I was in grad school, they were really pushing me to dig deep. And that's what happens. They really push you. And I was struggling. I was really, really struggling. I was being very vague with my work. I wasn't finding me or a message in it. And I was trying to kind of tiptoe around everything because I wanted my work to be more subtle. And one of my professors pulled me aside and said, sometimes you've got to hit people over the head with what you're trying to say in your artwork. And I had to think about that for a while. And then I started talking to women veterans that I know and their experiences, and everybody's military experience is different. And, I got to hear some stories. My experience was rather positive. I mean, there was always things that, incidences and things that happened that weren't positive, but not in the big picture too negative. Like it wasn't bad. But I had talked to some women and their experiences were horrific of what how they'd been treated, the things that had happened to them, and the fact that when they tried to get help, there was no help. Nobody was there to help them. When they reported the incidences or things that had happened, the leadership you look to that's supposed to protect you didn't care. They just told her to basically shut up and color, just do your job. And that's what happens. And in some cases, the women, I know women who've reported, harassment, and then actually the people they reported to actually assaulted them. So there was a lot of things happening. And I started thinking, because my experience was one of a more benign military career, that's not true for everybody. So I decided that I needed to share this. I need to tell this story because when we think about the veteran, we often think about the young soldier coming home triumphantly, or maybe not triumphantly, but coming home to fanfare. His wife and children are there waiting, his mom and dad, his family's there, and he's the hero coming home. But you don't think about the women who come home broken. They might have a husband at home and children they had to leave behind to go serve. So they're missing that. And something happens horrible to them while they're serving, whether it's from their fellow serviceman who's supposed to be there to protect them, or just their experiences as an individual in a combat situation, the things that they see and the things that have happened to them. So I really felt like this needed to get out there. I felt like that there was a gap and there was nobody talking about this. And I wanted to do it in a way that looked at the idea of women and service, because these women are serving their country. in a way that most people don't think about women serving, like the idea of a woman's role in the home, that domestic realm. And so I started looking at my grandma's china collection and just pulling back from my own family history and looking at the imagery on that and trying to find a way that I could bring the two together using the idea of that, traditional woman's role in the home, serving the family versus this modern woman's role serving her country. And as a way to open a dialogue between the viewer and the work so that they would ask, what is this about? And then I can tell them. And so the story can get out there. But I know you'd asked me about grad school. It came about really slowly. It took about a year in grad school for me to get to the point where I was willing to make it portraiture. And I chose to use myself as the model in certain situations because I didn't think some of the women didn't want to be included. They didn't want their image on it. And I thought that by using myself, it's more of a every woman image and it's me and I can tell the story. And then that way it makes it safe for them and a way to create that image. So, and I did do it as using a portrait. So the idea of a portrait on the plates and platters and the work.
Yeah, one of the formal devices that you do is you'll often have like the image of you or the woman in very tight focus in the foreground, and then the background you can see where they're at, like whatever environment they're in. So can you talk about compositionally how you think about the focus being on the figure as being the metaphor for the focus being on the woman? Or can you talk about that idea?
The idea is that, the woman's face, and it's pretty close crop, she's at the forefront of the image. And I really want her to show her strength, her beauty. Sometimes she's wearing glasses, goggles like we would wear. And then reflected in her eyes, you'll see something happening sometimes. So there's another story in there, what she's witnessing and seeing. And then I like to place her in situations that are a little jarring, And these a lot of these images are based on true images. So they're women from combat scenes that I pull to use as reference because I want it to have a true place in life. I want it to have a starting point that's a real story because the truth is important to me. I don't want to make up fairy tales. I think it's better for it to be truth. So, we have the woman as the main subject and then we have her background or, the scenery. And then to pull it together, I like to use the traditional iconography, for decorative tableware and flowers, lots of flowers mixed in with grenades and rifles and, combat detritus everywhere. And it flows, but I want them to be beautiful. So it pulls you in. So you see from at first this really beautiful piece. And it just looks, I've seen that, right? Oh, my gram has that china. I've seen that pattern before. I know that. That's very familiar to me. And so you come closer to the plate. You almost dismiss it at first because you don't really realize what's going on in there. And then you come in closer to the piece and you see all pretty flowers. And then there's a woman and there's, what is that behind her? There's a tank. What's the tank? And then you look at the woman closer and you realize she's in a combat uniform and she's holding a rifle. And then it all is kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on? What is this? And so it has that moment of kind of surprise to the viewer. And then this like, what is happening? And they want to know more. I want to pull them in and make them ask questions.
And one of the effects of this formal style is that it's very clear that it's a woman in combat, and I often think of combat as being such a depersonalized experience. Like when you're in the military, if you're referred to by your rank, that's depersonalized. If you're referred to by all of these sort of monikers of notating who you are and where you are, that's very different than saying like this is a real human being. And this real human being was in a real traumatic situation. So can you talk about how this personalizes the experience of yourself or anyone that's being in the portrait?
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly like you say. You think of the military and it's just you're one of a number and not an individual. And these I make, they're a little different, so they're individual in that way, but it also sheds that light on the woman and her story, and it does personalize it. It humanizes it. And it also makes you look at this woman and think about, oh, my neighbor, she served. I wonder what her experience was like. Or my mom served and I never asked her what her experience was like. Because a lot of times women will come back and you just come back from wherever you were deployed to, and the next day you're, making dinner and doing laundry, just like you weren't there. And you're trying to adapt back to this regular life, like you're just thrown right back into it. And a lot of times you can't adapt back. So this is a way to help maybe open a conversation, and maybe you can talk to a female vet about their experience, and it can help them too if they're willing to share it.
I noticed that I was reading through your CV, and this is a perception, is that once you make work about veterans, every veteran exhibition of art is going to ask you to be a part of it. So like your CV is literally filled with, like, I don't know how, like 50% of them are focused on veteran art. So can you just talk about how choosing a subject matter then dictates how art galleries think about you, how maybe if you're trying to apply for a grant, there's obviously like a lot of funding for veterans, like how making that subject matter pigeonholes you, which I guess could be a good or a bad thing depending on how you think about it.
Right. Yeah. So I am a veteran artist. So when people look at me as an artist, I'm a woman artist too, but I am a veteran. And so my art is very much that of a veteran artist. And I did make that decision to fully accept that and go forward with it. That was right after grad school. I had to make that decision. Where was I going to be? What did I want to say? And we all make stands and declarations in our lives, and we all have the causes we support. And, as my experience firsthand as a veteran, the wife of a veteran, the daughter of a veteran, it just seemed like that was going to be my role, not forced upon me, but it is completely, something I've accepted and embraced. And yeah, I do a lot of exhibitions with veteran organizations, and I'm a part of the emerging veteran artists movement out there with a whole bunch of other veterans, not just visual artists, but writers and poets and visual performers, and so many things going, musicians, so many things out there that's full of veterans trying to find ways to express themselves, to share their experiences, and to also deal with their military experience as a veteran. And I do end up in a lot of shows that when people think of veteran artists, my work ends up in it because it's very unique as veteran artists. A lot of veterans making art, I would say most of them don't make art that's necessarily autobiographical with the military iconography in it. A lot of times it's just artwork, which is great. It's beautiful work. It's fabulous. And it has its own message in a different way. Mine is very much about the veteran woman. And I feel like that it's my soapbox to stand on, and I'll proudly get up there and do so to help, in any way I can.
So when you're in the active duty role, or even when you're transitioning out of it, I'm sure that you're not encouraged to criticize the military. It's not something that we're known for in the U.S. Either you support the troops, quote unquote, or you don't. But that doesn't play out in the actual life of a troop that's coming home that may or may not have had a good or bad experience, that needs to make art just to deal with the emotional life. So can you talk about what you're observing in veterans that maybe need to express something that's not anti-military, but that was anti their experience? Because if you're in a traumatic combat experience, it is traumatic. Like they're trying to deal with those emotions. So can you talk about like walking that fine line between making art that's negative about the experience, but not negative about the military itself?
Well, it does depend, and it's very individual. There are some artists out there that are making artwork that is negative about the experience and negative about the military. Like they didn't get the help. They feel like the military failed them. And I agree. In many cases, they did not get the help they needed. The military should have stepped up, and they should still be stepping up even afterwards and doing more because there's need. Now, the VA veteran, is out there, and they do have programs, but still not enough. There's just not enough out there for the veterans that need it. So I would say a lot of veterans make artwork that, they're trying to get out there anger, their disappointment, the disillusionment that they have. You thought you were doing this one thing, you were going in to serve your country, this positive, good thing, and these terrible things happened. Sometimes you did terrible things and you can't deal with it, because who can deal with that? You need help to figure out how to navigate the world now, because your head's not okay because of what you've seen and done, and you need some help. And they're just like, here's your papers, you're free, bye. And there's nothing, and you're just left on your own. And so through art, they can find a way to have a voice, and they can express themselves, and they can work through that and deal with that. And it's necessary, because if you don't deal with it, you're going to break. Like it's PTSD. We all know if we don't help veterans with PTSD, they're going to break. And when they break, it breaks bad. We know this. And so there needs to be more out there for them. And if making art is the thing, even if their art looks ugly to you, even if it's angry art, even if it's something that you yourself look at it and you're like, oh, that's not my thing, does not matter. For them, it's the making that's helping them, that's getting them through. It's healing them, and they need to keep making. And that's what's important. It doesn't have to be to the viewer's liking. That's the thing about art.
Well, I liken it to like a visual journal. Like if I write something in my journal, which I've done periodically in my life, I look back on those things, and it was not important to me now what I wrote then, but it was really important that I was writing something down. And I think it's like that for people that are using art for therapeutic purposes. It's the act of making that's the thing.
Exactly. And writing is really important for a lot of veterans coming home, trying to deal with what they've been through and how to go forward. There's this great organization, warriorwriters.org. It's an organization that will take all veterans in, doesn't matter when you served, and they have events where they'll help you through writing, deal with your experiences, and they're also there for support. And they do publications and things. So they're an amazing organization.
I've noticed that a lot of veterans assistance programs, they're not governmental. They're extra governmental, outside of the system. Now, I'm glad, that's great that they're there, but isn't this just a core problem in our society that we fund people to learn skills, go out and fight for the country, and then when they're done, just like you said, here's your papers, you're free. That is not a good way to do it.
Exactly. No, and that's why so many organizations, as artists, there's artist organizations that are really working to provide the funding. I do everything I can to help other veterans, whether it's volunteering my time, donating pieces for auctions, donating financially. It doesn't matter. I'm actually, hoping to do more for veterans in the coming year with ClayShare, to try to help get programs up and running through local VAs or even VAs that are far away. But, I've taught at Haystack. I've gone 3 times, twice as a participant, and this last time as an instructor for the Haystack Veterans Art Week or Craft Week. And I taught ceramics to veterans there, and it's all paid for. They just get there, and there's even stipends to help pay for their travel. But they come in for a week. They don't have to worry at all. There's a counselor there that goes around. Anybody wants to chat, just go sit out. Haystack's amazing. It's a beautiful place for healing anyways. You just go sit out there on the deck and you can chat with the counselor. She's amazing. The one that was there when I was there, she was amazing. And you make art, and you don't have to worry about anything. Meals are provided. You have a place to stay right there at Haystack. And so that kind of experience is something that, I want to do more to help provide that for other veterans. And it's not just in clay. There's printmaking, there's paper making, there's writing, and there's other disciplines too.
So let's talk about ClayShare. This is a platform that you've created that's an educational platform for ceramics. How did this come about?
It kind of just happened. But yet it had planning. So I was, after grad school, I'd be making my work. I did a residency. I did the whole thing you do. You finish grad school, you go do a residency at an art center, and then you get a teaching job at a college and you teach, and that's what you do, right? And so I was doing that. And I also was doing some live streaming from the studio, and it would just be me in the studio one day working because I didn't have a class to teach that day, or I had to prep work for a class. And I thought, well, why not share it? and I discovered the Potters of Periscope, which was a bunch of potters. And I'm here alone in Vermont. So this was great. I could have a community of other potters to hang out with. They could watch me work. I'd watch them work. And it really was a great little community. And I had so many people like, I want to do that. I want to learn how to make pottery. And I was like, well, you should find a clay center. There should be one near you. Look online. Where's my nearest clay center? And I said that so many times to people. And then I had people say, well, you should just teach. I mean, I'm trying to learn from you now. And I was thinking, well, if I get time. And then the college where I was teaching cut their clay program. So it was like, oh, now I don't have a job. I have a lot of time to do live streaming. And so I was doing the live streaming and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to set up my own classes and we'll start with intro to wheel throwing, intro to hand building, and just work our way up from there. And I thought, we're going to be making clay and I'm going to be sharing with people how to make clay. So clay share. Right. It was kind of, it just happened. And so I had to corral my husband into doing the IT work because I did not know how to do a website other than like the drag and drop Weebly situation. So he got roped into it and he was doing something else. So he wasn't really interested in what I was doing that much, although he supported me, but he didn't think it was going to really go very far. So I had 30 classes filmed, 30 full-length classes filmed. We put them up. We were supposed to launch July 1st. But we had the website as we're prepping it. People started finding the back way in. Like, you can always, a website exists. And although you can't go to the main thing, there's always back ways in. So people knew I was going to do this and it was starting. They knew it was going to be ClayShare. And they were finding the back way and signing up for membership. And I was like, well, I guess we've launched. It started because people are signing up. And so we launched. In our first week, we had 100 members sign up, which I thought was amazing to have 100 people want to come learn from me online. And then every week after that, I was filming like 2-3 classes. And I did that. And just we built up membership, built up the community, because that's what really started it. It was a community where you'd feel like you had a safe place to learn for anybody at any experience level in pottery. And so now here we are, almost 4 years later, thousands of members and hundreds of classes, thousands of videos, two private live broadcasts a week for my premium members and a public live broadcast every week. And it's just amazing community. It's the best. I could never expected this or to know I would end up, teaching this way online. And I met a potter a couple of years ago and he was like, so what do you do? And, so it was like year 2 of ClayShare. And I was like, oh, I teach ceramics online. And he looked at me. He was an older gentleman. He's like, you can do that? I was like, well, I think so. It's sort of working. So I'm going to go with it.
Well, we should describe how it's grown. Like it's grown in number, but also you guys have a platform that can be downloaded to any smart TV.
Yeah.
I actually put it on my TV. I just went into Roku, looked up ClayShare because I just wanted to test the back end. And it's exactly like Netflix or something like that.
It's just like Netflix, except it's pottery or ceramics. Yeah. So when we started, it was just clayshare.com and you would go in there and it was a little little creaky. Like, didn't you wait for stuff to download? It took a little while and it wasn't as seamless as I wanted it. And I had so many people saying, you should have an app. And, and I was like, yes, I should have an app. So we started looking into what we could do. And we decided to partner with this company called Vimeo. And they basically provide like the platform, like for Netflix, they do TBN, they do Martha Stewart's channel. They do a whole bunch of channels. And so it's OTT, which is over the top, which means outside of cable. That's what everything's OTT. Netflix OTT, Hulu is OTT. So it provides OTT capability. And so we didn't partner. We basically hired them to help us design our app and to run our streaming platform. So we provide the content and they just have the text on the back end that we, send the stuff to, and they just click a button and it's up there. But we do all the editing, we do all the filming, we do all of that on our end. But since we launched the app and the fact that you can watch it on Roku, like you were saying, you can watch it on Apple TV, you can watch it on Amazon Fire Stick. Yeah, have that. You can screencast. You could just go to the app and you can watch the live broadcasts there. You can watch our workshops anywhere. It's just, you can sit on your sofa and watch me on your giant TV teach you how to make, a teapot, right? You can just sit there and watch it. And if you get bored of that, you can just click to the next class or the next or the next. It's just right there at your fingertips. And since we launched the app, that would have been fall of 2019. We launched the app in the OTT platform, and we have just grown just exponentially since then. And for me, it's not about more numbers. It's just a better experience. I want to provide a better experience for our members.
And it's so smooth on the back end. Like, as someone who is testing that user experience, it made me realize that I didn't think about the platform because it was so smooth. And that's the way I like technology to be, is that it works so well you don't even notice it's there.
Yeah. And, Kevin, my husband, came on board working for me, working for ClayShare really, a year and a half ago, full time. So that has been good because he does now all the IT. I do the creative content. I do the filming. I do, the audio during filming. I basically set everything up. I'm by myself out here in the studio doing it all. And then I pass it off to him. Except when we live broadcast, he does the cameras and runs that, because it's a little different with live broadcasting versus a recorded class. So he handles the production during the lives. But it's been good. Although I think we're getting to the point where I'm going to have to see about getting a few other team members, because it's a lot to do by yourself, because you'll be in the middle. We're all makers, right? So you'll be in the middle of making something covered in clay and realize, I got to change the camera angle. And so you've got to stop, and then you've got to go move your cameras, and you realize this is now too dry, and then you got to remake it. And it's just, doing it all yourself. There's a lot of extra steps involved. So it does take more time, but I love how hands-on it's been for me. I've learned a lot too.
Well, you're often teaching very specific things. So, if you go to a beginning throwing class, it's very broad, but you're often saying, like, I'm going to teach you how to make a cup or a plate. So it's project-based. So can you talk about the value of teaching in a project-based way?
Yeah, I will. Because when I learned over 20 years ago, it was basically, okay, class, we're going to make a punch bowl. And my professor sit down, throw the punch bowl. Okay, now your next project is you have to make this in 10 cups. Go. It's due in 3 weeks. That's it. That's your instruction. So where do you figure out how to make this? Your instructor's kind of doing whatever, and you're like, you get no help. So for me, there was books. And so you're looking at books, at hand positions in books. You might have done the same thing, because I think you were learning when I was, so we're like looking at books and looking at, that's how you put your hand to do a gallery. That's what you do. And so when I decided to do ClayShare, I wanted to make it very much project-based, one thing at a time, because it's easy to understand. So we're going to make a cup. You need this much clay. This is how we start. We break everything down into tiny bites so that everybody can understand. Plus, if you need to go back, you just need that one little bit. Like, I didn't get the lip on that. I need to go back and re-watch that part instead of the whole thing over and over. And so that was the whole idea. Was it's that phrase, how to eat an elephant, right? You one bite at a time. So how to basically teach almost everything in pottery, one little project at a time, one skill at a time. I have a class on just pulling handles, That's it, because handles are tricky for a lot of people. And I want to teach them a way that is more approachable and seamless, and they get good handles. So that was, really important to me. Also, success is important to me, and it doesn't have to be big success. If you make something that you're proud of, that's a success. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the best cup ever. It's just you made it, and it might be the first thing you ever made. And as long as you're happy with it, that's what I want for my students. I want them to succeed and have fun doing it, and maybe sometimes to challenge themselves, to be creative.
Well, that's another thing I wanted to ask about is challenges. You often have a challenge. Can you talk about what that is and how that engages the student base?
Yeah, so we do, we do a challenge every year. And this year we broke the challenge up into monthly assignments, because we did a broader one last year where it was the whole year challenge. And it was kind of a daily, like make a pot a day or be creative every day, work on your pottery somehow. And I coached them through, but it just was a little too vague. So for 2021, we decided to do a monthly challenge. So we have a video where we announce what the challenge is going to be for that month. You get a choice of a form. So say maybe it's a mug, and then you get a choice of a theme, like some kind of thing you could put on, like could be birds, right? So you could either make mugs, or you could maybe sculpt some birds. You could draw birds on a plate. You just get these choices. And then we check in, like every week during my broadcast for my premium members, we check in and see how everybody's doing. Plus, we have a private group just for our premium members. And so they share what they're working on and we can encourage each other. So it's not just me. And oftentimes now our community has grown. We have people who are members that were following me before I had ClayShare. They came in and it was like they're amazing. They're our legacy members. They came in and they help each other out. Like if I can't answer a question because I cannot get to every question, they do. And they step up and they help take care of it and they take care of each other. And it's really great to see that and to have a place where people can go and know that there's this caring, supportive community and that we all came together because of ClayShare.
With a platform like this, you have a lot of data. Like you can see what are the popular videos, how long are people subscribing. So talk to me about the back end. Like what's the things you're learning about people's behavior as students because you can see the download numbers?
I can. And it's funny, we did our top classes and our number one class is the NOMI class. So I did a little pinch class, like a intro level class on making these little pinch gnomes. And so it was very simple. It's our number one class. It's the most popular class because anybody can do it. You can do it we've got a little extra bit of clay. And I know it's not, some people might think, well, is that really ceramics? It sure is. It's made of clay, and people are making it and having fun. And so that's our number one class, which is so funny. And then like plates are really popular. And so what I do is I definitely take a cue from what my students like. Like they loved the gnome pinch class so much that I did a couple of little pinch classes. A lot of our members will be working with family members, like maybe their children or grandchildren will be there and want to make, working in clay, not like job, but working in clay. And so this is the kind of project that they can do, but they can also teach to their children or their grandchildren, and they can have that connection with their family members and teach them the love of clay as well. So I love the projects that are multi-generational and that people can share amongst each other. I have more advanced, complicated classes out there, but I really take a cue from our members and what they want. And if someone requests a class, even if it's something I don't do, I'll do it. If it's something I really don't do and I don't know, I will find somebody to teach a workshop on it so that they can get that knowledge. Like we have a workshop coming up on mocha diffusion with Kevin Kowalski. So, that's because I don't do mocha diffusion. So it works out. And it also lets me get other people in and, other teachers in there and provide a platform that they can then use and, share their teaching with everybody.
So what we haven't mentioned is that the pandemic happened and your service, you created it before the pandemic, but I would imagine this has been financially amazing because everyone's at home and people want to sign up for ClayShare now.
Yeah, we saw a huge jump starting last summer in membership. But, it's funny because our trajectory, when we look at our data every month, we've been on a line since we started that has just been going up, up, up. And it's interesting. When the pandemic started, we had a bump, we had a really sharp bump and then things went back to the normal trajectory. So it's still going really well. The company is still growing at the same rate. It might be a little more, and it gets a little steeper the longer we've been in business. More people discover us. We have a retention rate that is like 82%,
wow,
which is crazy high for a company. Of course, I'm like, no, we should have 100 because everybody should stay because of the community. And that's really, been the key for ClayShare is the community. And I have to say for me, it's what brought me to teaching online is looking for a community and then starting my own company with ClayShare. It basically has given me a community of potters. And it's been amazing. Some of our members meet in real life. They've become very good friends. We had a get together last year at a clay conference. I was presenting at ClayCon West in Utah in 2020 before everything shut down. And so we had a meetup and a bunch of our members came. And two of our members who lived in like opposite places in the country met, and they used to be best friends like 20 years ago, and they had lost touch through life, and they didn't know what each other was doing. And then they finally found each other again through ClayShare at the conference. Like, they sat together the whole time and they were just reminiscing, and I'm like crying because the fact that they found each other through this online ceramics platform. It's like, that doesn't happen, but apparently it does.
When it comes to numbers, have you noticed on a live broadcast, like let's say if you have 200 people on a live broadcast, and I'm just making that number up so you can correct me, but let's say you got 200 people, how does the educational environment differ in that scenario versus having like 1,000 people download a video? Because in your head, you could say, oh, 1,000's better, but the camaraderie of watching something, it's almost like watching a sporting event together. Like there's camaraderie in the lab events. So can you contrast those?
I can, yeah. And so usually we actually get a few thousand people watching live, so it can get kind of crazy when we're doing the live broadcast. And it's a totally different experience for a live broadcast versus a recorded class. Recorded classes are done in the studio. It's a controlled environment, except when my little rooster gets involved and starts crowing. That can happen. But the classes are very much all about the instruction. It's very straightforward. There's not a lot of side conversation. There's nothing. It's not distracted at all. It's just, this is what we're doing. We're going to teach this, and that's it. Live broadcasts are very organic. And we have some people who've mentioned to me they don't enjoy the live broadcast because they don't want other people commenting. They just want to have the instruction. They're like, I'm just here for the pottery. And that's fine. They can be. Go watch the classes. The live broadcast may not be for you, but the live broadcasts are a chance for me to teach, yes, but also to connect with our community and for them to connect with me. And they know they can ask me questions. Now, usually I get 600 to 700 questions in a live broadcast during the broadcast. So there's no possible way I can answer everybody. And so I always tell everyone, if you're asking a question and I didn't respond, it's not that I'm ignoring you. It's just that there's hundreds of other people asking and it might be already answered. So someone else will either chime in and answer, type in an answer for me, or if I catch it, I'll get it. So I try to get as many as I can, but it can get a little crazy. But it is organic. So we will start. And we have a plan to make a certain thing as the demo, but somebody will be like, oh, well, you're glazing with Amaco glaze, but what would that clay look like with Mako, whatever? And I might have a piece. I'm like, haha, guess what? I have a piece. And so I grab it and I'll be like, this is what this same thing looks like with this glaze. So those things happen because it's always open to influence from the audience, which I think makes it better. I love that part of it, more so than the structured teaching. But if you're just starting and you really need the basics or you really want to get something down, then yeah, that structured class is perfect for that. They're not boring. I mean, they're fun classes. It's with me. I'm a pretty fun person. So, I mean, you never know what's going to happen in the class. I leave oopses in because my philosophy is if I mess it up, you're going to probably do it at some point too. Gives me the opportunity to show you how to fix it. Because I'm not perfect and you should not think I am. So let me help you fix that and we'll get it right together. So it's, I love the lives though. The lives are always so fun. I end those sadly because I always want to stay with the community.
So because thousands of people are watching you or downloading the video, in some ways you're the face of the company. Like you're the person they're going to see, which I don't want to say that you've become a celebrity because that's like a weird word in ceramics, but you are a recognizable face. Like when you go back to Nsika in person, I'm sure that your experience will have changed. So how do you feel about your face, your body, your personality being out front like that? Like, are you comfortable with that, or is that something you had to grow to become more comfortable with?
It was a little difficult at first, but I have always been outgoing and I've always loved people. And my dad was one of 9 kids. My mom was one of 6. So there was always lots of family and you kind of get mauled a lot by people when they come to visit, hugs and stuff, and they would come all the time. So I was never really left alone. And I was always used to talking to a lot of people and having a lot of people around me. And then when I joined the military, my job, I would brief generals. And so I had to be able to stand up there, know what I was talking about and talk to a 3-star general and not mess that up. And that takes a lot to do. And you get used to it after a while. But it still was unnerving at first. So with ClayShare, I mean, I I look at it as it's me. It's just me, and they're all my family, and they're all hanging out. They come to be with me, and we're all together. And I don't think of me as any different than anybody else that's in ClayShare. So it's a little weird, and I'm sure Nsika will be weird. Although last Nsika that happened, there was an interesting. I'll tell you this little story. I was talking at a booth, and all of a sudden I hear someone say, "I know that voice. That's Jessica Putnam Phillips. This is not anybody I know." And I turn around, and they came running over and hugged me. I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And I was just like, "You knew me from my voice." And so our members who will be watching, and they'll have the TV on, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I was watching the other night, and my husband's like, 'So what's Jessica telling you to do today?'" It's like they know my voice more than my face, maybe.
That's great.
It's great, though. I love it. I love everyone that's part of ClayShare. I'm a people person, and so I'm good with it.
And accessibility seems to be a part of your personality. Like you're not like saying like, I know more, so I'm not going to teach you, and I love that about ceramics is like that's generally our philosophy in ceramics is like, if I know it, I'll totally teach you. But when it comes to a platform that you're making money from, you had to think about how much can we charge for this? It's a subscription. So you pay, is it $9.99 or $10.99?
It's $9.99 a month, or you sign up for a year and it's $99, which gives you 2 months for free, basically, right? So, yeah. And
yeah, so let's talk about figuring out how much to charge for it.
Well, it's hard. And we've been at that price point since we started 4 years ago. And there's always the conversation of increasing prices. And I'm always the one that says no, because I want to make it accessible. We do scholarships. So we do make it accessible for those who are need-based. We do scholarships for veterans and veteran caregivers. So we try, and then there's certain situations where we'll do scholarships too that aren't publicized. We don't really make a big deal about what we do and give, because I feel like it's what everybody should be doing. I don't need to like make a big deal about the fact that, oh, I gave away this many of whatever's, because it's what we should all be doing anyways and helping each other out. When starting the platform, and I actually took my guidelines from this online guitar lesson platform, because I got a guitar a few years ago for Christmas and a subscription to these online guitar classes, and it was $99 a year. And I was like, that seems about right. I know $99 seems pretty good. We could break it down to $9.99 a month. And so I went with that. I was like, oh, that's what I'd pay. Now, I mean, if you look at, there's other platforms that are charging, there's other, classes online, and they're more, and everybody sets their own prices. For me, I wanted to make it easily accessible for somebody who's just starting out and they're thinking, I'd like to try this, but I don't want to invest, a few $100s, because I don't know if I'm going to like it. And if I don't like it, then I've just spent all that money. And there's also equipment, when you make pottery, it's not like playing the guitar. You just buy a guitar and then you play that. But with clay, and especially now, kilns are a must have. You got to fire your pottery, so you got to have a kiln. You don't necessarily have to have a wheel, because you can hand build, but if you want to throw, you need a wheel. If you're going to do a lot of slab building, you might want to consider a slab roller. And then there's clay and glaze. So there's expenses. So I wanted to keep that in mind and not, charge so much that people can't afford the supplies they need, for the classes. So that was very important. But we also have to look at financially viable. To run this company, there is a huge expense. It's huge. I mean, Netflix is not cheap and to run, and an OTT platform is definitely not. And we put most of what comes in right back in to keep it running. So we are not rich by any means, nor do I want to be. That's not my goal. I mean, I want to make a living because I have to, put food on the table and a roof over everybody's heads. But it's not about making as much money as I can in life. That's never been a goal of mine, ever. I'm more about bringing joy and teaching people how to make pottery. And, that has been more my goal as far as a teacher. That's that. And so if I can do that, then that's priceless for me.
You mentioned that before we got on mic that you're still moving. You guys are moving to a new house. So
Yeah.
now you're getting to set up like dedicated studio for filming, dedicated studio for working. Like you're getting to build the studio you want. And that is, I think, a special thing in every Potter's life when they get to do that. So what are you setting up in the new house that will be dedicated to Clayshare?
So it's going to be in stages for the interim. I'll be traveling back to this studio because it's completely set up and it's about 35 minutes away. So I'll come here until spring, and then I'll probably be using. We have an old carriage house that was turned into a garage, and then it has a second story. So I'm going to use that for the summer as my interim studio while we build a new studio on the property, which will basically just look like a barn, a 2-story barn. And the great thing about this is I have never had running water in my studio. I just take buckets from the house to the studio every day. And it's novel and it's fun, but it'd be nice to have water or a restroom in the studio. Because you're in the middle of something and it's like, oh, you gotta go in the house. And it's like, it might, and then once you get into your house, it's your house. And then you have interruptions, children, animals, stuff, life. So having a separate studio means more focus for me. Running water is a big thing. And the fact that I can have dedicated filming areas separate from my work area. Right now in the studio, I film and work in the same area. There's no separate space. So working, I'll have classes set up. I'll have them in process for filming. And then if I want to come work on a project for a future class or just my own artwork, I have to move everything and then set up my own stuff and then move it all back. And so that can be a deterrent. So in the new space, the plan is to have a filming area for hand building and wheel throwing separate from where I'm going to be working, which is not going to be huge. It's just going to be the other half of the room, basically, but it still is going to be my own area, which as a creator and a maker, that's a huge part. Like I love my job and I'm very, very blessed to be able to teach people how to make pottery and do something I love. I love it. So that's good, but I don't always want to make things for classes. Sometimes I just want to make for me. And if I have to come to the studio and clear away all my classwork, all my work, that can kind of hold you back, right? Because the access to the space where you're creative is really important. And not having that has been a little difficult for me because there's days where I'll come out here thinking, today will be for me. Because that's one thing, trying to find balance when you run your own company is very difficult. So I'll come out to the studio and think today will be for me. And then I'll be like, oh, I'm in the middle of filming this. I'll just film this and I won't make anything for me. And I'll finish that. And then I didn't do anything. And at the end of the day, it's the end of the day, you're tired, you've done your work and you don't really want to take the few minutes to be creative. So for me, I think this will be really good because I'll then have a space where I can work and just have it in process. When you're working on new projects, you have things strewn about. You don't really want to mess with it. You want to let it be, especially when you're in that developmental mode of new ideas. So this is going to be really good.
Well, I wanted to wrap up talking about the conference that you have coming up. So can you plug that and talk about how that developed?
So we have Clayshare Con, which is the Clayshare conference. It's an online conference. And we started it last year. So this is the second year of it because, as many of us know, NCECA was canceled and there was just nothing out there. And a lot of us had already, signed up, booked our hotels. We were making plans to meet with friends. We were going. And it sort of crushed a bunch of people, including myself. And I thought, well, what can I do? What can I do? And I know a lot of the suppliers and vendors really well. I'm friends with them. They work with me on Clayshare. They work closely as sponsors on Clayshare. And I know how important this is for them too. So it's not just the attendees, but it's also the other half, the makers and suppliers. And I know NCECA is a huge thing business-wise for them. And so we decided in 10 days, we put together an online conference. And actually Vimeo did a profile of it and did a story of us on Vimeo.com. I'm not sure where it is on there. Oh, let's see if I can find the link if you want it. But they profiled us and actually had us on and talked about what we did because in 10 days we put on a online conference. It was sort of crazy. And so I did demos using all kinds of techniques. It was 100% free. We did giveaways, Speedball, Mako, Amico, Clayscapes Pottery, Dolan Tools, Kentucky Mudworks, Studio Pro Bats, all kinds of people, GR Pottery Forums. They all stepped up and donated items. So we gave away to our viewers every day. So there was a couple demos every day showing how to use products, how to make, and then giveaways. And it was just really fun. And it was all done live. So it was live. And we did that it was 5 days long. And it was crazy good. It was so fun. And I was completely exhausted at the end. And we had to make the decision if we were going to do it again. So many people were like, do it again. And I don't want to compete with NCECA or another online conference. And I know NCECA is doing a virtual conference this year too, but it is happening. ClayShare Con is happening February 24th through the 28th. It'll be probably about 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. will be the live broadcast. I think we're going to have a after hours night sponsored by Clayscapes Pottery. I think they're going to do something, but it's free. It's free for the people to watch. It's free forever. Last year's is still free. You go to claysharecon.com and you can watch everything from 2020 for free. There's nobody has to pay anything. And the sponsors and vendors who are part of it, and we're setting up a special vendor hall for them, they don't pay anything either. It's basically another way I can give back to the ceramic community to help, the artists, to help the teachers, to help the makers, and also to help the vendors and suppliers. And I know, there's other things going on too, but this is just what I can do. And it's fun and it's very casual and we just have a good time. So it's going to be a hand building day, a wheel throwing day, a glazing day. We'll talk about kilns and firing. We'll do surface decoration techniques, carving and stuff. And I think JR Pottery Forms is going to come on a lot and do some demos and show how to use their forms. And he's always great, Jeff.
Oh, he's so good. Yeah.
He's so good. Speedball is going to send me some factory tour stuff. So we're going to have some factory tours. A few of our members are going to do studio tours, showing how their studio is set up and how come it works for them. And I don't know if I can do one because the middle of the move and setting up for Claysshare Con, the studio is sort of destroyed. So it wouldn't be a great example, but we've encouraged our members and anybody out there that wants to share and be a part of it to just let us know. We'd love to have you come on board and do it with us. It's going to be fun.
To wrap up, can you plug both your website for your personal artwork and then also how people can sign up for Clayshare?
So my website is my name, jessicaputnamphillips.com, and you can see my work there. I have to admit I have to update it because I'm terrible at keeping up with that because I'm running Clayshare. And so if you want to find out more about Clayshare or sign up, you can go to clayshare.com. It's pretty easy. You can also find us if you go to your app store, however you download apps, whether you have an iOS or you have a Google device, you can just search for Clayshare. And you'll find our app. Our little logo is a pot with two hands together helping to make pottery. And you can download that for free. And you can browse on Clayshare for free and check it out. And we also have a free 7-day sign up. So when you do that, you get full access to 100% of everything, except the workshops. The workshops are separate, but members get discounts. So that's my little plug.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben. It has been fabulous to chat with you.
I'd like to thank Jessica for taking the time to do this interview. It was a pleasure to chat with her. She sent me some resources that I wanted to pass along to you guys. The two organizations she mentioned are Frontline Arts and Warrior Writers. You can find them at frontlinearts.org and warriorwriters.org. She also mentioned the National Veterans Art Museum, which is nvam.org. I'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you'd like more information on the artists on the show, or if you'd like more information about the workshops and events that I'll be having in the next couple months, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under Carter Pottery. Another great way to support the show is to leave me a comment on iTunes. To do that, search Tales of a Red Clay Rambler under iTunes Podcasts, and you'll find a page that's linked to our show. Thank you guys for the support.